That we're going to do so is by listening different lectures and conversations as we have been doing before, but now in this case, you are going to be responding to the questions, right? And we're going to try to respond to several lectures and conversations. And we're going to try to make it just as it's going to be on the exam, okay? So let me please access now my simulator, my screen as well with you. And here you have it. All right, fantastic. So as I told you, when you get into this section, Diana, and for the rest of your classmates who are watching this class as well, you're going to be directly introduced to the material. In this case, it's a conversation between a student and a librarian. Therefore, what you're going to be doing is you're going to listen to this conversation, and please remember that it is very important for you to take your notes, right? Therefore, what you're going to do is take a piece of paper, a pencil, and write down your notes. And afterwards, we're going to be responding to each of the questions for this conversation. But as you remember, per conversation, you're going to have to respond to 5 questions. Per lecture, 6 questions. But in this case, as we have a conversation, 5 questions are going to be necessary. Well, so let us listen to this. And afterwards, as I say, we're going to be responding to the question, and I'll explain the methodology we're going to be following. So let us start listening, and please take your notes, okay? Let's go with the first conversation.
Listen to a conversation between a student and a librarian.
Excuse me, I'm wondering if you might be able to help me. I'm looking for the original text of a short story by an author I'm studying for my 20th century American literature class, and it turns out that this particular story's original version is a little obscure.
I'd be happy to help you, but, what about the story makes it obscure? Is it simply not a well-known piece of work?
Well, actually, it's a somewhat well-known story, but it's been published in different versions over the last several decades. I've read it several times in collections of stories, so I know the story well, but I haven't read every version of it.
Okay, I see. So you're looking for a specific version of this story, then?
Yeah. You see, the original version was published in a magazine called Weird Tales in 1927. But not long after it was published, the author died. When it was reprinted 10 years later, the author's family revised the story with a few changes to the original text.
I see. Out of curiosity, did the changes affect the meaning of the story, or were they just simple corrections?
I'm not exactly sure. That's one of the reasons why I'm trying to track down the original text. I've read interviews with editors and publishers who have said that the editorial changes made by the family didn't actually affect the plot of the story, but they did change the writing style. See, I'm studying this particular author's writing style very closely, and because this is one of his early stories, I really need to know how major the changes were. So that's why I'm trying to find the unedited text from 1927.
I can definitely help you with this, but first we need to establish the exact issue of the magazine where the story originally appeared. That should be easy enough to find if we can track down a book that has reprinted the story. Did you happen to check on that before you came?
I did, actually. I have a copy of the best scary stories of the 20th century, which includes the story. And on the copyright page, it says the story was first printed in hold on, I have it written down here. In the March 1927 issue of Weird Tales. Does that help?
That's definitely a good place to start. Now, we do keep some bound collections of old magazines in our physical collection.
Great.
Well, don't get your hopes up. I doubt this particular magazine is there because it's so old, and some copies are collectibles. But let me do a quick catalog search to see if we might have any copies of Weird Tales from that particular year. Well, it seems we don't have any original Weird Tales magazines in our collection here in the library.
Does that mean I won't be able to find it?
Not necessarily. The library also subscribes to a number of online databases, and several of them are specifically used to archive old newspapers and magazines. Let me check one of those databases to see if it includes Weird Tales. I'll just do a quick search, and... Here we go. There, it looks like we do have access to the full text of the March 1927 issue of Weird Tales magazine right here in this database. You can read every page of the magazine and print out the text to take home with you if you'd like.
Ah, that's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you so much for your help. I'll finally be able to finish my research paper now.
Well, great. We have listened to this conversation, and now it's time for us to respond to questions ahead us. Well, very good. Let us start with the questions, and here we have. Well, as you remember, these questions are always displayed to you one by one. And as I told you, you are not able to administer your time. That is to say, each question has a limit of 45 seconds to 1 minute to be responded. Therefore, right now we're going to practice with 45 seconds, okay? That is normally what ETS gives you in order to respond to each question. And as I say, I have here a chronometer that is ready with, well, 45 seconds. And as I say, what is going to happen is that I'm going to press this button and the 45 seconds are going to start counting down. When the 45 seconds are over, the computer is going to, well, to initiate an alarm, and we're going to be, of course, warned that the 45 seconds are over. When that happens, I'm going to move on to the next question, okay? And well, you'll have time to check out your responses at the end. So please, when you read the question, you have this 45 seconds to respond. As I say, take a piece of paper. If you want, you can use the same one you're using for taking your notes and write down on that paper the response for each question. Something like, well, first question, my response is the second option, right? Or the third option, the fifth option, or the first option, so that we can compare your responses later at the end, okay, with the correct responses. And by the way, I'm always going to be choosing one in order for us to check them later. But my responses in this case are going to be aleatory, okay? I'm not going to choose the correct ones, just in case, of course, I don't influence your responses, etc. So as I say, all my responses that I'm going to pick here are aleatory and random. They don't represent the correct response. At the end, I'm going to tell you the correct response, okay? But, well, you have 45 seconds in order to respond, and all of you as well, dear students, you have 45 seconds, and please start reading and responding now. Great, that's it. By the way, random response, I'm not sure which one is the correct one right now. Next question, you have 45 seconds again. Okay, so please start responding now. Okay, time's over. Next question. 45 seconds, start now. Great. Next question. 45 seconds again. Start. Okay, there you are. Next question. Okay, 45 seconds again. Oh, but in this case, we have to listen to the recording once again. So please let us listen, okay?
Why does the student say this?
And it turns out that this particular story's original version is a little obscure.
Now you can respond. Start doing so now. There you are. Well, so those are the 5 questions. As I told you, per conversation, you'll have to respond to 5 questions, and those were all the questions for that conversation. Well, now it's time for us to review these questions. So please let us go back a little bit and let us check out the correct responses, and you can compare them. And of course, I'm going to offer you some feedback. Okay, here we are. So it says, why does the student visit the library? As I told you, well, here we have the first question. In this case, it was to track down the text of a rare short story. This is exactly what he says to the librarian, right? He says, I'm here to check out if you can help me with this and trying to find the story. And he comments on that, right? It's a very rare story. Nobody knows very much about it. Fantastic. This is a detailed question, right? So, well, yeah, it's a detailed question. Basically, it's asking you why or what does the passage say about the student who is visiting the library, right? Well, fantastic. So this is a correct response. What about the first one, for example, to access the current issue of Weird Tales magazine? Well, we don't listen to any particular mention of this magazine in the conversation. Well, apart from a very short one, of course, very, very much nebulous mention. But apart from that, it's completely, well, undiscussed, right? The second option, to learn from the librarian how to use a new computer database. In this case, well, he never goes in order to ask for computer science advice, so it's totally false, right? And the fourth one, to ask the librarian for information about a specific discontinued magazine. So in this case, to ask the librarian for information about a specific discontinued magazine is again false, because he's not asking for, as I say, magazines, but it's asking for a story, right? For a story that he's looking or he's looking for, trying to pick, in this case, at the library. Well, this is the correct response, okay? Let's move on to the second one. In this case, it says, according to the student, what happened to the original short story text? It was edited by the author's family in a later version, or it was revised. Well, in this case, this is the correct answer, right? What happened to the original short story text? It was edited by the author's family in a later version. And this is the reason why it's very rare and difficult, of course, to find out, as he himself expresses. So in this case, it was edited by the author's family in a later version is the correct answer. What about the other ones? It was revised several times by the author. Well, the student never says this. He proposes, as I say, that his family has somehow altered the original version. What about the third one? It was destroyed when the magazine went out of print. Well, he never says it's destroyed. The point is that it's very rare and difficult to find out, but not that it was destroyed, right? And fourth option, it was altered as the last request of the author before his death. Not true. The student says that this is able to be found or possibly found in the library, but very difficult, right? So this is the correct response. Third question. The correct one was, well, what does the librarian imply about all physical copies of Weird Tales? And she says they are not very widely available, right? And well, she says this because she tells, right, the students, well, it's going to be a little bit difficult, complicated to find this out here at the library. And because of that word choice, you can, of course, certainly imply and bring the inference to yourself that the librarian, it's implying, it's somehow making the conclusion that it is very difficult and, well, very difficult to find out this magazine and short story because they are not widely available, right? What about the other ones? They are not worth anything to the library. Well, not true, right? Because she doesn't say, for example, that you can go and look for it, I don't know, in the toilet or something. An expression like that maybe would be implying they are not worth anything to the library. Or what about the first one? They are not very popular with readers. This is not the case as well, because if it weren't popular to readers, then it will be super easy to access it, right? Because no copy will be lacking at the library, but he never or she never expresses such an information. What about the fourth option? They are easy to find in other libraries. She doesn't say that because maybe if she said something like, oh, well, you can go to the older corner in, I don't know, Turner's library, you're gonna find it there, right? But she didn't say something like that. Therefore, it's not available in other libraries. Well, let's go with next question. Number 4. What solution does the librarian propose for the student's problem? And here we have the correct response. He should take advantage of the university's access to online archives, right? Because she says, well, you know, the physical one, it's very, not very much widely available, but nonetheless, your university has a fantastic online library in which you can find a scanned and, well, basically a PDF, right, of the story you're looking for. And that is going to be exactly the same because you're going to have access to the information that is presented in that particular magazine and story, right? So this is the recommendation the the librarian gives the student. And we have listened to this in the conversation, right? What about the first option? He should search other libraries' collections online to find a physical copy. This is tempting maybe, but notice that in this case it says he should search other libraries' collections online. But what the librarian says is that the university has a fantastic online library, and that he should look and seek in another library's online collections. But what the librarian says and recommends that he should look in the same university online library, not in other libraries online, right? So look at that. It's very confusing, but it's tricky. So be very much careful. B, he should borrow the book from the university's special collection. As I say, that is not the case, because if that were the case, she would have said something like, well, let me have a few seconds. I'm going to go to the special section. And I'll bring it to you, right? But that didn't happen. What about the third option? He should access the story by subscribing to an online journal himself. Sorry, not at all, right? Because she doesn't mention any journal or subscription to a particular service like that, right? But the only thing she says is that there is a fantastic online library at the university and that he should access it in order to find out this material. Well, and last question, why does the student say this? And here we're going to listen once again to the recording.
Why does the student say this?
And it turns out that this particular story's original version is a little obscure.
Great. So this is at the beginning of the lecture, right? Well, not lecture, the conversation. When he establishes this problem and starts to explain this to the librarian and says, well, you know, it happens that I've been looking for this in other places. It's not there. I've been trying to make a research and this happened, well, to be somehow corrupted by the author's family. So what he's trying to say here when he says it's a very much obscure story, the one that I'm looking for, he's trying to say that, well, I have an obstacle in my research, right? And he's trying to express that he has an obstacle in his research, and he wants to, of course, express this to the librarian so that she can help him or that she can give him a word of advice, right? And that's the reason why the student says that. As I say, this is a function question that asks, Why is the speaker including this in his speech? And the reason why he's including this is because, as I say, he wants to make sure the librarian is totally conscious and aware of the difficulties in finding this copy, this text he's looking for. And of course, he wants to check out if the librarian may have some word of advice for him. And as we found out, she did have a word of advice, right? But fantastic, that is the great response. The other ones to highlight how much he reads literature that is hard to find. Well, he's not, in this case, showing out his skills in order to show he reads very complicated literature, right? If that were the case, he would say, this is not very difficult. I've been reading Immanuel Kant lately in his Critique of Pure Reason. That is a very difficult book to read, right? But he didn't actually say something like that. Or to begin a conversation about hard to find stories in general. No, because in the entire lecture, he doesn't concentrate in general stories, but on the particular one he wants to find out. And the fourth one, to demonstrate the depth of his knowledge to the librarian. Again, if he were saying something like, what happened to this in this year, or what happened later on, and this specific author, and this specific date, and this specific name, he's not, in this case, boasting about his abilities or knowledge. He's merely asking help to the librarian, and he's trying to inform the librarian about all the situations and scenarios of this particular research and, of this particular, let's say, in this case, it's a very difficult adventure for finding out this material, right? There you have. Well, that would be the that would be my feedback on these responses. I hope that you found out many of these answers to be very easy. And now it's time for us to continue. Let's go with another lecture. Okay, we're going to listen to one more passage. And in this case, as I say, please take your notes, and then we're going to respond one by one with the same methodology. Okay, let us listen to this new topic right now.
Now listen to a conversation between a student and a professor.
So, Aaron, in your email you said you wanted to talk about the exam.
Yeah, I've just never taken a class with so many different readings. I've managed to keep up with all the assignments, but I'm not sure how to...
How to review everything?
Yeah. In other classes I've had, there's usually just one book to review, not 3 different books, plus all those other text excerpts and videos.
Well, developmental psychology is a little more, involved compared to some other subjects. You've looked at the study guide, I assume.
Kind of. Yes. I mean, I haven't gone through the whole thing yet. I'm still just doing the stuff on the first page.
You haven't looked at the second page of the study guide at all yet?
No, I've barely had time to go back over the first 2 readings from the first page.
Well, no wonder you're so confused about where to start. Let me show you a copy of the study guide. Look here. See what it says at the top of the page? This first page is just a list of all the texts and videos that'll be on the test. The actual guide is on the second page. See?
Oh, wow. And it says what I need to remember from each reading.
Uh-huh. So for example, from the Intro to Adolescent Psychology book, you only need to review the developmental stages from Chapter 2.
And it looks like I need to know everything from the main textbook, the big one.
Right. You'll want to review all the core concepts in the first 4 chapters of Development Through Lifespan. Well, almost all. I forgot to mention this on the study guide, but the test won't really go into Freud's stages of development. Those are a little, outdated compared to newer research.
But we're still going over all of Piaget's developmental stages for children, right?
Exactly. And notice that you only need to review about half of the supplemental readings, just the ones that focus on adult psychological development, and the video on Alzheimer's disease, the brain disorder in elderly people. See, I marked it right here.
Okay. I feel like I understand a lot better now. I guess I should have looked at the second page, huh?
Yeah, and I actually did mention that in class. You know, you really should have checked with your classmates before coming to me.
Well, I've always studied alone before.
I don't think students should be studying solo in any class. It's always better to study with a partner or a group. It can really help avoid confusion.
Yeah, I've really had trouble keeping up in class so far. I think I'll join the class study group in the library tonight.
Yeah, please do. Your classmates can probably help you more than I could. You know, when it comes to organizing your notes, getting together a good study strategy, that sort of thing.
All right, let's go. So this is the conversation, right? The second one. So now it's time for us to respond to questions. Let's go with the first one. Here we have it. It says, why does a student visit her professor? And of course, you have 45 seconds to respond it. Please start responding now. Great. So let's go with next question. Gotta choose a random one, right? Not the correct one. Okay. Next question. You can start. Okay, there you are. I'm gonna go for this one. I don't know. Random response. Next question. There you are. Next question. 4 or 5 seconds once again. Sorry. Next question. This is the final one actually, because per conversation we have 5 questions, right? So we're gonna listen this time. Let's go.
Listen again to part of the conversation. Then answer the question.
And notice that you only need to review about half of the supplemental readings, just the ones that focus on adult psychological development, and the video on Alzheimer's disease, the brain disorder in elderly people. See, I marked it right here.
Why does the professor say this?
And the video on Alzheimer's disease, the brain disorder in elderly people. See, I marked it right here.
Awesome. Now, for 5 seconds to respond. Great. You had a question, Diana? I thought that you. Yes.
No, teacher.
Okay, fantastic. Great, very good. Oh, there you are. Okay. Oh, and we have actually one more. Oh, no, we don't have one more here. It's just another lecture. Great. Well, let us review then our questions, all right? Let's see. Let's go to the first one and let's see how you got this one. All right. Well, so in this case, why does a student visit her professor? And in this case is to discuss the best ways to prepare for her upcoming exam, right? She says this, right, that she found this class with her professor, I'm sorry, to be very difficult because there were a lot of information sources to revisit and to study from to, of course, have a good performance on the exam. Now, she comes here to discuss with her professor in order to, of course, know the best manners or ways to prepare herself for the upcoming exam, right? So that is what the student says to her professor. Now, to receive the second page of the exam study guide is not true because she never talked about the exam study guide as such. What about the second option, to make suggestions about which readings should be covered on the exam, is not actually true as well, because in this case, she is not suggesting, right? I would like this topic or this theme to be included in the exam or something like that. That would be actually ridiculous, right? To ask if you are a student, right? So the third one, to examine an important theory about developmental psychology in children. Not at all, right? Because she is not coming here to understand, I don't know, a topic that she didn't understand before or something like that. But certainly, as I say, it's like not the correct response because of that, because she is not discussing theories or something that she saw in class. She is worried about not knowing what to study for the exam, right? So the correct response is the fourth one. Good, let's go to the next question. What does the student think reviewing for the test is especially hard in her psychology class? And this is what I told you. The course has more readings than other classes she has taken in the past. This is actually the first thing she says. The first thing she says to the professor, I have never had a subject with so many sources to read, right? So, well, this is what the student believes about the reviewing for the test, right? That is to say, the material to study for the exam. What about the second option? The test covers both child psychology and adult psychology. Well, she doesn't specify what type of material this sources really talked about, but the only thing she mentions is that there are a lot of sources and a lot of places to look into in order to study for the exam. Developmental psychology is not her main academic interest. Well, she doesn't say that she is not enjoying her study or something like that. What she says is that she, in this case, doesn't know what particular topic to study. Not that she's not enjoying or having joy by, of course, reading and studying for this psychology subject. So this cannot be the correct response. And the fourth one, the study guide lists the most difficult texts that were used in class. Therefore, it cannot be the correct answer either. Let's continue them with more questions. Question number 3, in this case, what is the professor's attitude towards study groups? All right. They are very important resource for exam preparation. So it says here, what is the professor's attitude towards study groups? And she says, he says in this case, that she should have well, guidance in sort of group study, right, or study group, I'm sorry, in this case, because by having people to study with, they are the ones who are going to tell her, well, you know, you should study merely this topic because our professor is always focused on this or that. But given that she's not part of these study groups, she's coming to see her professor, and that is something wrong, as the professor explains, right? Because she should have actually gone to her classmates before coming to him. Therefore, he considers that study groups are actually a very important and useful resource for exam preparation. Well, so it says here, professors should make an effort to organize their students into study groups. Not really, because, well, she's not, or excuse me, the professor in this case is not discussing what other professors should or may not do in their courses, right? What he's discussing is that the student should have been part of one of these study groups that are present in his particular subject, and that way she could have responded to this question way easily without disrupting and bothering the professor, right? What about the third option? The students should create groups at the start of the semester before exams begin. And this is certainly a correct response. Excuse me, not a correct response, because he never talks about when these groups are created or at what point should they be, I don't know, designed or established by the students in his subject. This is not mentioned in the lecture or the conversation in this case. The students in groups can divide the work of reviewing so that it is faster. Well, we don't know, because in this case, certainly we are not listening any particular topic about this, right? That they can divide their work or something is not mentioned. Number 4, what does the professor imply the student should do if she has any more questions about the exam? Talk to her classmates to see if they can answer her questions. This is true because he says, right, well, next time before coming to me, go and check out with your study group before you ask me some questions, because of course, this is not the normal procedure you should follow. The normal procedure is to ask your classmates first and then to come to me if you have any real important question, right? So as you can see, this is the inference we can make out of this information because of the sentence I'm quoting, because the professor himself explains to her student, excuse me, to his students, hey, next time, please go and check out with your classmates and with your study group first, so that later on you can come to me if there is any really important question to ask, right? So write down a complete list of your questions and arrange them by subject. Is never a strategy proposed by the professor. Make sure to attend all the group meetings that the professor organizes. Not at all. He never talks about his personal organizing study groups or something. Review her study guide carefully to see if she's missed anything. Not at all, right? Well, in this case, she's not particularly guided or counseled towards checking her study guide in order to see if there's something that she has missed or no. The only thing he implies is, hey, go and check out this with your classmates before. Well, next one. Listen again to part of the conversation. We're going to listen, okay?
Listen again to part of
Oh, sorry, I don't know what I did. Okay, sorry.
the conversation.
Logical development. See, I marked it right here.
Why does the professor say this?
And the video on Alzheimer's disease, the brain disorder in elderly people. See, I marked it right here.
Okay, so in this case, the professor is trying to specify what topics are going to be included in the exam. He says, okay, this and this and this. You see, I included a mark here, right? So by this expression, he's basically telling her, he's a student, I'm sorry, that the exam will include information from a video. That is actually the main topic to be discussed and asked in the question of the exam, right? So here you have the correct response. The other ones, he wants to, or the student to understand the Alzheimer's disease. And so Alzheimer is not mentioned in this sentence. And as I told you, this question is merely about the last sentence you listened to, not the entire background that comes before. In the background, maybe Alzheimer is mentioned. Nonetheless, in our sentence, in our short sentence, Alzheimer is not mentioned whatsoever. Therefore, the correct response cannot be Alzheimer. What about his offering to lend the students a video that she can watch before the exam? In this case, he doesn't say that he's going to lend a video, but that he already gave a video to the class for them to consult it in order to study for the exam, right? So it's, as I say, not correct to respond this because he is not offering himself to lend this to his student or something, but that he already gave this topic to his students. Third one, he's suggesting that the video is more important than the readings. Well, as I say, in this sentence, he's not saying so. Maybe in other parts of the conversation, he expresses that the video is actually the most important topic, but in the sentence we have just listened to, there is no real information trying to suggest that particular conclusion, therefore cannot be the correct answer, okay? Fantastic, and now let us listen to one more topic, all right? In this case, it's going to be a lecture, so please have your ears wide open and let us take notes on this, okay? Let's go.
Listen to part of a lecture in a psychology class.
As you all know, psychological trauma has lasting and very damaging effects on a person. People who have survived abuse or neglect from a very young age, soldiers coming back from a war, and other kinds of people, too, are at risk for the disabling symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, for years and years. Some types of therapy can provide some relief and some symptom resolution. These therapies can be long-term or short-term. They can teach people many useful skills. They can focus on past, present, and future and be very helpful. However, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, or EMDR, has the promise to do something unique. It can help on a somatic level, which means that it helps the body feel different, and not just the mind, like other therapies. EMDR allows the body to feel safe again and to learn that a new life is possible. It is a set of standardized protocols that incorporates elements from many different treatment approaches, and it has helped millions of people of all ages find relief from many types of psychological stress. It involves learning new ways to process traumatic memories and a somewhat unconventional approach in which patients follow a beam of light back and forth with their eyes as they work with their therapists. The big goal of EDMR therapy is to understand completely the experiences that are causing problems and to include new ones that are needed for full health. To process these experiences does not mean just to describe them and talk about them. Instead, it means setting up a state of mind that will allow these experiences to be understood in a healthy way. In other words, the big, strong emotional reaction will become much smaller over time. The person will feel better and not have as much difficulty doing day-to-day activities. The inappropriate emotions, beliefs, and body sensations will be removed. Negative emotions, feelings, and behaviors are generally caused by unresolved earlier experiences that are pushing you in the wrong directions. The goal of EMDR therapy is to leave the patient with the emotions, understanding, and perspectives that will lead to healthy and useful behaviors and interactions. No one knows exactly how any form of psychotherapy works in the brain. However, we do know that when a person is very upset, their brain cannot process information normally and clearly. The traumatic experience can become frozen in time and continue to repeat endlessly. Remembering a trauma may feel as bad as experiencing it again and again. The images, sounds, smells, and feelings often do not change but remain very present. Such memories have a lasting negative effect that interferes with the way a person sees the world and the way they relate to other people. EMDR seems to have a direct effect on the way that the brain processes information. Normal information processing is resumed, so following a successful EMDR session, a person no longer experiences the images, sounds, and feelings when the event is brought to mind. The patient will still remember what happened, but in a much less upsetting way. Researchers think that this has to do with the way the person's eyes move when he is thinking of a bad memory. In EMDR, the patient sits in a chair and is taught to think about a memory that is very painful. Then, with the guidance of the therapist, the patient thinks about this memory while following a light moving from side to side with his eyes. This causes his eyes to move from one side of his head to the other. The movement of the eyes stimulates the brain in a way that helps the person feel better. Although EMDR may produce results more quickly than previous forms of therapy, speed is not the issue, and it is important to remember that every client has different needs. For instance, one client may take weeks to feel safe enough with a therapist to be able to do the work that is required by the treatment. Another reason why EMDR may not be very fast in the eyes of many psychologists, why it sometimes has that reputation, is that some patients have layers of long-term trauma, so that when one issue is resolved, another one comes up. Sometimes the next issue may even be more important. Also, treatment is not complete until EMDR therapy has focused on the past memories that are contributing to the problem, the present situations that are disturbing the patient, and what skills the client may need for the future. All three elements need to be addressed: past, present, and future. The good news is that this treatment works, and people really do get better. A lot better.
Well, great. There you are. That is our new lecture. And well, this time we're gonna get into the questions, all right? And we're going to be knowing which of these questions or which of these responses are correct, all right? So great. Let us start then with our first question. You have 4 or 5 seconds. You can start now. All right, next question. Let's see what's the question. Oh, what is it? Yeah, but what about the rest? Oh, what a weird thing. Apparently our material here didn't have more questions. What happens? Yeah, I should go to the next. Okay, this is weird. Very sad. What a deception. Okay, so apparently our lecture merely had one question in the simulator. So sad that we just got into that one. Well, we're gonna have to listen to one more topic. It's fine. I think that, well, it was actually I was planning to do something like this. So well, let us listen to one more lecture. All right, at least that one helped you to get used to these academic discussions. Let us listen to this other lecture in a biology class, and then we're going to respond to questions. Okay, so let's listen to once another lecture.
Listen to part of a lecture in a biology class.
Today, we're going to discuss the genetics of eye color. Parents just love seeing similarities between themselves and their children. You know, they'll often say things like, "Oh, he has my nose," or "she has my cheekbones." Now, in the same way, they sometimes expect that a child will have either the mother's or the father's eye color. So, at times they'll get confused when a child is born with an eye color phenotype that neither parent has. This means that the child will have a different eye color than either parent.
Excuse me, sir, but isn't it the parent's genotype, the collection of genes that each parent has? Isn't it the genotype that determines a child's phenotype? And wouldn't this mean that a child's eye color would have to match that one of his parents?
Ah, it should be so simple, Marissa. But eye color is one of those features where the genetics are slightly more complex. Ah, yes, Jack?
I'm sorry, but I need you to back up a little bit. Could you first explain what a genotype and phenotype are again? I feel like I don't even know what we're talking about.
No worries, I was getting to that. A genotype is the combination of genes or DNA that codes for a certain trait. A phenotype is the expression of those genes. More specifically, the phenotype is the actual eye color that results from the combination of genes, or genotype, that that person has. In the end, the specific eye color is determined by the amount of a substance called melanin in the iris of the eye. To complicate matters further, the iris has two layers, an inner one and an outer one.
Well, before we get to the layers, could you please clarify what an iris is exactly?
Of course. The iris is that thin, round area in the eye that has the eye color. Now, depending on how much melanin is found in each of the two layers of the iris, the eye color can be blue, green, brown, gray, or hazel. To put it simply, the more melanin is found in each layer, then the darker the eye color will appear. Because melanin is like ink. It's like ink for the eye. There are at least two pairs of genes that affect eye color, but some researchers believe that there are as many as 8 genes responsible.
So, how are blue eyes produced, like mine?
Well, in blue eyes, the front layer of the eye has no melanin. Some people have so much melanin in the front layer that their eyes appear very dark brown or black. Different levels of melanin in the inner and outer layer determine the different types of eye colors. Now, the pattern in which melanin is deposited is also determined by genetics. It can be deposited in rings, clouds, radial stripes, or even spread over the entire iris. There are actually a lot of different genes that affect the amount of melanin that will be produced in any one person.
Oh, I have a question. So my little cousin is 2.5, and she had bright blue eyes when she was born. Well, actually, she had bright blue eyes up until like 2 months ago, when suddenly her eyes started to get darker and darker, and well, now they're hazel. So how can that happen?
I am glad you asked that. It transitions us right forward into our next point. Now, many babies are born with blue eyes. And this is because the melanin is produced slowly from birth until about age 3. So a person's true eye color is not clearly determined until that age. Depending on what the genotype dictates, the production of melanin will stop when the correct phenotype is expressed in the eye color. Like I said, scientists used to believe that there was only one gene responsible for eye color, but now we think there may be as many as 7 or 8 genes that play a role in it. Genes are like recipes that make up a cookbook. They tell your body and organs what to do and in what way to make you. Just like certain ingredients in a recipe, your genes have certain ingredients that are dominant. This means that the dominant version of the gene will be expressed. Now, for an example, brown eye color is dominant over blue. This means that if a child gets a gene that codes for blue color from the mom and a gene that codes for brown color from the dad, the child will eventually have brown eyes. This is because brown eye color is dominant over blue eye color. Now, this would be advantageous in nature, seeing as blue eyes are associated with an increased risk for some serious degenerative illnesses.
There you are. Great. Well, let's go with the questions now, okay? And you have 45 seconds to respond to this one. And start now. There you are. I'm gonna go for this one. Let's go. Second question. Okay, let's continue. Next question. Okay, next question.
Listen again to part of the lecture. Then answer the question.
In the end, the specific eye color is determined by the amount of a substance called melanin in the iris of the eye. To complicate matters further, the iris has two layers, an inner one and an outer one.
Why does the professor say this?
To complicate matters further, the iris has two layers, an inner one and an outer one.
You can start. Good. Let's continue. Last question. Okay, that's it. Fantastic. So those are the 6 questions for this lecture. Now let's check them out, okay, in order to see if they were right or not. Okay, very good. So remember that I always choose random answers, okay? So these are the correct ones. How genotypes influence the appearances of eyes? Well, here we have the correct answer. In this case, because we're running out of time, I'm not going to give feedback, but I have a homework for you. Check out the answers, compare them with yours, and try to write down on a paper or something. You don't have to send this to me, by the way. Why did you choose the answer you chose? Because when you understand this and when you try to give a feedback or explanation as the ones that I've been offering you throughout this class, trust me that your criteria improves very much and you are able to identify what your mistakes are, okay? So here you have the first question and try to write out why you chose the correct one or the incorrect one, okay? Next, in this case, this is the correct answer. A child may be born with eyes with the colors of his or her parents. Write down on a paper, why did you choose this answer, why you didn't choose it, and you're gonna find out your mistake. Next, third question, what does the female student mention her little cousin? Here we have, is the fourth answer. If you chose it, fantastic. If not, please try to write down why did you choose it. Okay, let's go with number 4. For this one, it is the first option. If it is born with blue eyes, the color will change to brown. Here you have it. And well, as you can see, try to compare it with your response. Fifth one is the last one to set the stage for a thorough explanation of how eyes color is determined. Try to compare it with your responses. And finally, this one, which of the following describe blue eyes? Choose 2 answers. You can see this is the type of question that I talked to you about yesterday when I told you there are some questions that have a statement besides the question or below that tell you choose more than 1 answer. In this case, 2 answers. Okay, so please read this very much carefully in order to know how many answers to pick. If you don't have any sentence like this, then it means by definition that the question merely asks you 1 response. Okay, but if you have a sentence like this, you have to read it very carefully to see how many answers you have to pick. Okay, in this case, it was the third one and the fourth one. 2 answers, number 3 and 4. Okay, great. There we are. Fantastic. So that will be everything for today's class. I'm going to be sending right now more practices to the WhatsApp group, and all of you can review this in the YouTube channel. I'm going to be uploading the class there. And well, thank you very much, dear student. Thank you, Diana, for being with me. It was a pleasure. Help me, please, given that you're the only one here with the traditional poll, okay, that we always feel. You are my only student right now, but anyways, help me with that. And well, next week, we are going to be analyzing a very exciting topic that is the speaking section. And I know that many of you are eager to, of course, get into that part because it's the most difficult one. But trust me that we're going to have a lot of fun with practicing and understanding that part, okay? So thank you very much for your responses, dear Diana. And we're going to be seeing each other next Tuesday, all right? In order to continue, I'm going to be sending a lot of practice to the WhatsApp group, so please wait for that. And thank you for your presence, and thank you very much, students, okay? Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, teacher. See you.
Thank you, Diana. See you.